My guest on this week's episode of Suds Search is Paul Shapiro, head of Technical SEO and growth marketing lead at Shopify. Paul is one of the most respected SEOs in the industry. He's a technical marketer, an author, and a popular conference speaker. He has held senior SEO positions at numerous Fortune 500 companies, working to solve some of the most complex SEO issues imaginable. He's the founder of the TechSEO Boost conference, which is the first conference completely dedicated to technical SEO. Paul has also spoken at numerous conferences you might be familiar with, including MozCon, SMX, Brighton SEO, and many other places. It's a really exciting time for folks working in technical SEO. The work is more sophisticated than ever. There are interesting updates from Google that everyone is trying to understand. Paul has been there and done that in technical SEO. I'm going to start our conversation by asking him about the current moment for technical SEO and have him reflect on how we got here. Some of the most exciting stuff happening in technical SEO has to do with SEOs beginning to leverage Python programming. Paul was one of the very first people I can remember talking about Python even a few years ago. I'll ask him about how much that community has grown during this episode. Grab something cold to drink and join me for a conversation with Paul Shapiro. We'll talk about why looking at technical SEO as a ranking signal is a flawed view. We'll spend a little time talking about the work he is doing at Shopify, and I'll ask Paul about board games and horror movies. All right, Paul, welcome to Suds Search. How are you doing today?
Doing okay, Mark. Okay.
Yeah, I get it. Well, let me start off with hopefully a happier note. So, I was going through Twitter one day, and I noticed some buzz that Noah Lerner started on Twitter it was like a week before this conversation about Tech SEO Boost and resurrecting it. He called it his dream to speak there. Then, like, all these luminaries from SEO all chimed in and offered support and wanted the conference back. What is the latest? And what is your role in this whole thing? Why are you the designated bringer backer of this conference?
It was my conference. So it was an event that I founded going back to my agency days. Okay. You know, it was quite nice to see Noah chime in there and really get this groundswell of support for bringing something back. Talking to Noah behind the scenes and a bunch of other people, trying to see what that will be, and hopefully we'll have another event or a similar event in the near future.
Well, it was so cool because it clearly struck a chord with people. It was like the amount of people who came out and talked about it. I truth be told, I never attended Tech SEO Boost. What made it such a popular conference series? Why the sentiment was almost unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing, obviously, to see that level of support over the years of running it as well. But yeah, I basically created it because I didn't think there was I didn't think there was an SEO conference that spoke to me personally. Even the advanced conferences, they didn't feel advanced enough for the level of work that I was doing. Definitely not the things that I wanted to hear about as much. So I was like, I know a bunch of smart people. Let's get them speaking about, next level SEO topics. I sort of have specialized in technical SEO over the years because that's where I had always seen that level of innovation and interesting SEO work being done. But it wasn't limited to what is traditionally thought of as technical SEO. So we had topics about like data science and SEO, information retrieval, automation, all sorts of like other more, I would say, technically inclined people talking about how they leverage different technologies towards SEO in their data lives, even if it wasn't just technical SEO and it was like content SEO or link building. We even had to talk about what I would call technical link building, how to use like machine learning to help build links. Like, it was a conference that I was really proud of running and attending. I always left as the conference runner learning something, which isn't always true of all SEO conferences.
Well, that's awesome. And we'll link to your Twitter in the show notes, and make sure to follow Paul for more announcements about that conference series as it goes along. Yeah, as I was preparing for this conference, I had kind of a big picture question for you. It seems like this is a really interesting period of time for technical SEO. And for someone like you who's been there, done that, it seems like the problems are more interesting now today. The solutions are more sophisticated. With some notable exceptions, Google is more transparent about what they provide to SEOs. You've been doing this for a long time. As you reflect on your career, how has the field of technical SEO evolved, and what do you make of this current moment we're in?
Oh, yeah, it's it's been really great. Again, like sort of, I've worked in what is traditionally thought of technical SEO, but I've also worked more broadly in SEO, and I think sort of the level of talent that has come out of the traditionally technical SEO community has brought a lot more advanced like methodologies and procedures to the general SEO community. And when I first joined, it was very little of that, and it's grown significantly. I think I was like one of the first people that was talking about using like Python in their SEO work,
Yeah.
and like since then, like that became like a hot thing now. Like everyone's learning Python and using it into their day to day, and it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing to see.
Yeah, like I was going to ask you about this. It's like in the last few years, the adoption of Python programming. So I can remember back, a few years ago, it was like you and Hamlet Batista were the only ones talking about this. That was it. Today, if you go on a search engine journal or any of these SEO websites, you'll have 3 or 4 posts about use cases for Python. Admittedly, I am going to quickly get over my skis talking about Python, but do you believe that the popularity of this programming isn't, kind of just, if you can, kind of give me a concept of what sort of new areas of exploration it's opened up for tech SEOs?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great applications with natural language processing, which is obviously very
Yeah.
applicable to like understanding content, um, even writing content, as we see like the natural language generation, like the GPT-3 being leveraged more and
Right.
more.
Right.
Sort of what you call like semantic keywords. That's not the official term, but that's that. I think people understand that concept of like that this isn't an exact match keyword, but it's semantically related to maybe a keyword you're targeting. There's machine learning applications like all over the place, and I mean you see it in all the software platforms now being integrated, and that's heavily due to the adoption of Python. Python sort of
Yeah.
became the de facto programming language for data science work. Um, there was this there was another programming language, Lua, that had this really great library called Torch, and that sort of got ported over to Python. And because Python's a much more accessible programming language, it sort of blossomed even further due to that.
Wow, fascinating. The other big topic that's kind of, again, I'm talking about this as sort of a golden age of technical SEO, but Core Web Vitals is like that's the other one. You can't go anywhere on an SEO website without hearing about Core Web Vitals or largest contentful paint or something like that. So, you know, I wonder how you approach it. So there's this idea that I've talked to some technical SEOs, Patrick Stocks being one of them, is like to him it's not about ranking websites as much. It's about this is a good user experience, and because we are creating a better user experience, there'll be a bunch of positive cascading effects from that.
Mm-hmm.
One of them may be like you'll get more traffic, you'll do better in the sort of traditional SEO metrics. When you are weighing something like improving Core Web Vitals, do you look at it from a point of view like this is going to help me rank, or more so this is to help user experience and there'll be benefits that I don't even know what they are, but they'll derive from that?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I actually sort of despise it being grouped into SEO, if I'm being honest. And it a little
Yeah.
it sort of depends on what kind of organization you're doing SEO for. Not everyone has front end engineers that can work on this sort of thing, and I understand Google sort of pushing it towards SEO to help with adoption and improve overall performance of the web, which is absolutely important. for your website, especially if you work in like something like e-commerce, and you have all those statistics like every 100 milliseconds of like load time. Definitely impacts conversions, and then there's the user behavior metrics that it definitely influences. But like to me, it's not an SEO thing, and I've definitely done my share of work on improving web performance and improving web core vital metrics. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it being lumped into SEO. To me, it definitely lives outside of SEO.
I love that. Well, I mentioned that Google is being more transparent about several technical SEO topics, but one thing that came to light recently, the folks at Ahrefs, I think it was Patrick, who found that almost half of all of Google Search Console clicks go to hidden terms. That's a lot. That was something that I learned. Again, Noah, we're mentioning the same people again. Noah turned me onto this a few years ago. He created a tool called Explorer. And the first time he showed it to me, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, I thought Google Search Console was the truth. I thought that was the place where it goes. What do you make of this study? And if we're missing half the data, how do we fill that gap? Because that's a lot of information.
Yeah, I spoke to Patrick about this like when the study first came out, because I did find it jarring. I think my position on Search Console hasn't changed. It's still one of our best sources of SEO truth. It's imperfect, and I sure as hell miss the days of old where I had my keyword data in like analytics. But without that, like, what are you going to do? You have keyword data in Search Console. So that's what you have. I would like Google to be a little bit better about data tools and address these sort of things better. But if given what I have, I can make it work. For the most part, I don't think those queries are going to be representative of your most important search terms.
Okay.
Maybe at scale, like if you combine them all together, it becomes significant. But again, you sort of make use of what you have.
Yeah, I love it. Well, one of the things that occurs to me about your job, and I want to shift gears to Shopify if I could, but I'm kind of the tech person in my family. So if there's like even things I don't know anything about, like if like my printer isn't working, I get the call, right? And like just Google it. But Shopify is so popular because people who want to get something off the ground, who don't have a lot of technology experience, get to use it. I wonder, this is an oddball question, but do you get a lot of questions from friends and family with little tips to improve their Shopify sites? Have you had some friends come out of the woodwork to pick your brain on this stuff?
Yeah. Probably too often, especially since I don't really work on the platform itself. Right. Like more do like SEO for Shopify. Like I serve like in a marketing growth role for Shopify, and that's a little bit distant from the product itself. Not 100% distant, but a little bit. But I mean, it's a very easy to use platform. I think most of the SEO features, they're not perfect, but for 99% of people, it's going to get the job done, and you're not going to be impacted by like the super nuanced technical SEO things that might cause like a larger store to be upset with. I think we have solutions for like 99% of those SEO problems.
Well, awesome. Well, and let's say after news, there's an announcement today that several people have had to find a new home from Shopify. I remember when you joined that team with Kevin Indig it's like a little over a year ago now, and it was like a super team coming together. It was like, okay, we've got Paul and Kevin, and everybody's coming together. I checked, you did just cross your 1 year mark there. Really what I wanted to try and do is you've offered on Twitter, if people are looking to fill roles. I know a lot of people are trying to fill roles in SEO, and I know there's got to be some talented people there. How can we support some of your former colleagues who are now looking for positions?
Yeah. Uh, fortunately, our SEO team wasn't too heavily impacted. We have some content people, a couple SEO people that were unfortunately, let go as part of this giant layoff that Shopify had. So uh, I'm collecting names of people that wish to disclose them. And you can certainly reach out to me on Twitter. I'm a very active Twitter user. So if you want to DM me, my DMs are open, and it's my username on Twitter is Fido, Fighto.
Love that handle. All right. Well, listen, last questions here. Before I let you go, I need a board game recommendation. And you are apparently the guy to talk to about board games. Do you have maybe one or two recommendations of games you've picked up recently?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you like to play?
So my current favorite board game of all time is a game called Maracaibo. It's what people
Okay.
might call a Euro game, and it's very, very complex. If that's not for you, and you want to just sort of like dip your toes into this world of modern board gaming, which is very
Uh-huh.
far removed from the monopolies and risks of old, then my sort of go-to is a game called Camel Up. And I
Okay.
I enjoy it as someone who plays board games every week with my friends, and new people who are new to board gaming also always enjoy it. So it's good for everyone, absolutely everyone. So those would be my
All right. I
recommendations.
have to get some definitions out of the way. What is a Euro game? You said it the first one is a Euro game. What does that even mean?
Yeah, yeah. So Euro games were sort of this style of board games that are came out of mainly Germany post World War II, that sort of de-emphasized a lot of like the warlike elements that a lot of American games had. So they were
Okay.
100% strategic. Um, Little or no luck involved in the game at all. So you don't see like a lot of
Okay.
like dice rolling for the most part, or like random card draws. Um, and yeah, that's it. A lot of them are economic in nature, so like definitely like heavy like strategy emphasis.
I love it. So, three things I understand to ask you about are technical SEO, board games, and horror movies.
Mm.
So, horror movies is the third one we haven't covered here. One, have you seen anything recently that you can recommend? And second, doesn't the gore bother you? Do you get any queasiness about watching gory horror movies, or are you just cold blooded like that?
um yeah, I guess for better or for worse, I've probably been desensitized over the years. I know, like going back to like high school, like I would watch like one horror movie like every evening. So like
Oh my
I've seen
gosh.
quite a number of them. And it's I don't know, I kind of like them for their the artistic element, to be honest. Like I feel like you can
Okay.
push the envelope in the horror genre more than more mainstream genres, and you get some more
Yeah.
interesting elements. uh you know what, I've been a little bit distant in the last year, just really focusing on family and work. But I'll tell you, my favorite horror movie of all time is a film called Possession from, I think,
Okay.
1981. I could be wrong about that. Starring Sam Neill, uh, and it's
Okay.
a bit of an art house horror movie, and it's not despite the name, it has nothing to do with like demonic possession. It's more like the possession of a person in a relationship, and it's
Oh, okay.
deeply like metaphorical film, but also entirely like a horror movie. There's a penis monster. I'll put it that way. If you're thinking about
Oh,
like horror
okay.
and metaphor,
Okay.
it's kind of out there.
All right. Well, this was going to be the SearchLab movie night on Friday, but now this might have to go through HR before we can approve it. So, No, listen, Paul, thank you for coming on. And I think you're a must follow on Twitter. So I want to make sure that people know about it. Where else, if people want to learn more about you, about Tech SEO Boost, as the updates come about, what's the best way to connect with you?
Twitter is probably the best way nowadays. I do have like a personal website that's pretty inactive at this point. Maybe I'll bring it back. That's searchwilderness.com. There's a contact form on that if you want to sort of get in touch with me via email.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, you're a great guest. I'm going to give you a virtual cheers for now, and for everyone watching, we'll be back next week with another episode of Suds Search. Paul, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Mark.